Alpha King Draven Ashcroft had not slept a full night in 5 years. Every evening, when the moon rose over the northern wolf kingdom, he stood on the highest balcony of his stone castle and looked toward the mountains in the distance. Somewhere out there, he believed, his missing mate was still alive. No one else believed it anymore. His advisors had stopped saying her name. His own mother had asked him, gently, when he would finally choose someone new, but Draven refused. A Wolf King's bond with his fated mate was not something he could simply forget, even after 5 long years of silence. Her name was Alira Voss. She had disappeared on the night of her awakening ceremony, the sacred ritual that would have sealed their bond forever in front of the entire pack. One moment she was walking toward the ceremonial fire in a white dress, her eyes shining with nervous excitement. The next moment, she was gone. No scent trail, no sound. No warning. It was as if the earth itself had opened up and swallowed her whole. The pack searched for weeks. Search parties combed the forests, the rivers, and the border territories. They found nothing. Eventually, the council declared her dead, likely killed by a rival pack, or lost to the wild. They held a small memorial. Draven stood through the entire ceremony with his jaw locked and his fists clenched, refusing to shed a single tear in public. But that night, alone in his chambers, he broke down for the first and only time. He was not ready to accept that she was truly gone, no matter what everyone else believed. Over the following years, Draven never stopped searching. He sent scouts to distant territories under the excuse of trade negotiations. He listened carefully whenever travelers spoke of unusual wolf packs or unfamiliar alphas. He chased down every rumor personally, no matter how small or strange. Most led nowhere. A few led to dead ends that cost him valuable time and made his council whisper that their king was chasing ghosts instead of ruling his kingdom properly. Then, one autumn evening, a wounded warrior stumbled into the castle gates after a border skirmish. He spoke of a hidden territory deep within the Ashwood Mountains, a place that did not appear on any official map. He described fortified walls hidden among the cliffs, disciplined warriors who fought with terrifying precision, and a mysterious ruler that no outside alpha had ever seen face to face. Some called her the Shadow Queen. Others simply refused to speak of her at all, as if saying her name might draw her attention. Something about the story made Draven's chest tighten in a way he could not explain. He told himself it was nothing more than curiosity, that after 5 years of false leads, he had learned not to hope too much. But that night, sleep would not come. By dawn, he had already given orders to prepare a small, discreet traveling party. He did not tell his council the real reason. He simply said he wished to investigate a growing threat near the northern border. The journey to the Ashwood Mountains took nearly 2 weeks. The terrain grew harsher with every mile, filled with steep cliffs, thick fog, and narrow paths that seemed designed to discourage outsiders. More than once, Draven's guards suggested turning back, warning that they were riding into unknown and possibly hostile territory without proper reinforcements. Draven refused to listen. Something inside him, some old and stubborn instinct, told him he was getting closer to an answer he had waited 5 years to find. When they finally reached the edge of the hidden kingdom, Draven stopped his horse and stared in disbelief. Hidden among the mountains was an entire fortified settlement, built with such skill that it blended almost perfectly into the surrounding cliffs. Tall stone walls rose from the rock itself. Guards patrolled the perimeter with sharp, watchful eyes, moving in perfect coordination like a small, well-trained army. This was no ragged band of rogue wolves living in exile. This was an organized kingdom, built quietly and carefully, right under the noses of every neighboring pack. Draven and his guards were stopped almost immediately. The warriors who surrounded them showed no fear, despite recognizing the crest of the Ashcroft royal family on his cloak. They demanded to know his purpose. Draven, unwilling to explain himself to soldiers, simply stated that he wished to speak with their leader. After a tense standoff, and much to his surprise, he was allowed to pass, though his guards were made to wait outside the inner gates. He was led through narrow stone corridors lit by torches, up a winding staircase, and finally, into a large throne room carved directly into the mountain itself. Moonlight poured through an opening in the ceiling, illuminating a throne made of dark, polished stone, and there, seated with perfect posture and an unreadable expression, was the last person Draven ever expected to see again. Illyra Voss, older, sharper, dressed not in soft fabrics, but in a fitted dark tunic that suited a warrior more than a bride. Her eyes, once warm and full of nervous excitement, now held a calm, guarded coldness that made his chest ache. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Draven felt as though the ground had shifted beneath him. 5 years of grief, hope, and desperate searching collided all at once inside him. "Illyra," he finally managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. She studied him carefully, showing no visible emotion, though something flickered briefly behind her eyes. "It has been a long time, Alpha King," she said, her voice steady and formal, as though speaking to a stranger, rather than the man who was supposed to be her fated mate. Draven took a step forward, ignoring the way the guards near the throne tensed at his movement. "We thought you were dead." "I thought you were dead. I searched for you every single year. What happened to you? Why didn't you come back?" Illyra's expression hardened. "Come back to what, exactly? A kingdom that decided I wasn't worthy the moment they learned the truth about my bloodline?" Draven froze. "What truth? What are you talking about?" For the first time, real anger flashed across Illyra's face. She rose from her throne and walked slowly down the steps toward him, her movements controlled and deliberate. "You truly don't know," she said, more to herself than to him. "Your council discovered that my lineage was not what everyone believed. They feared I would weaken your bloodline, embarrass your family, or bring shame upon the throne. Rather than risk exposing their own failure to properly investigate my family before the match was arranged, they decided it was easier to simply remove me." "Remove you how?" Draven asked, his voice tightening with a rising sense of horror. "On the night of the ceremony, I was led away under the pretense of preparing an additional ritual. Instead, I was drugged, taken far from the Packlands, and left in unfamiliar territory with nothing. No supplies, no protection, no explanation. They expected me to die out there, quietly, so that no one would ever have to admit what had really happened." Draven felt sick, his hands curled into fists at his sides. "I swear to you, I knew nothing about this. If I had known, I would have torn the entire council apart searching for you." Illyra studied him for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether to believe him. "Perhaps you didn't know," she finally said, "but it no longer matters. I survived on my own. I built something on my own. This kingdom, these people, this throne, none of it was given to me. I earned every piece of it with my own hands, after everyone who was supposed to protect me chose to abandon me instead." Draven wanted desperately to close the distance between them, to pull her into his arms the way he had imagined doing 1,000 times over the past 5 years, but the guarded look in her eyes stopped him. This was not the same young woman who had once looked at him with quiet, trusting affection. This was a queen who had survived betrayal by relying only on herself. "Let me make this right," Draven said. "Whoever did this to you will answer for it. I promise you that." "I don't need your promises," Illyra replied. "I have my own kingdom now. My own people who depend on me. I don't need saving, Draven. Not anymore." Despite her cold words, Draven noticed the way her voice softened slightly when she said his name, as if some small part of her still remembered the years before her exile. He decided not to push further that night. Instead, he asked, humbly, if he could stay long enough to prove his intentions were genuine. After a long silence, Illyra agreed, though she made it clear he would be treated as a visiting monarch, not as a returning mate. Over the following days, Draven observed the kingdom Illyra had built. It was efficient, fair, and remarkably well organized. The wolves who lived there spoke of her with deep respect and genuine loyalty, describing how she had taken in exiled and wounded wolves from many different packs, offering them protection and purpose when no one else would. Watching her walk among her people, listening patiently to their concerns, and settling disputes with calm wisdom, Draven felt an overwhelming mixture of pride and regret. She had built something extraordinary out of the ashes of betrayal. Meanwhile, Draven used the opportunity to investigate the truth of what had happened 5 years earlier. Through careful questioning of his own guards and quiet correspondence sent back to trusted allies within his court, he began to piece together a disturbing picture. His former beta, a wolf named Corwin, had been the one to orchestrate Illyra's exile. With her removed, and Draven consumed by grief, Corwin had spent years quietly expanding his own influence within the council, positioning himself to eventually challenge for greater power. When Draven confronted Alira with this evidence, she listened carefully, her expression unreadable. "So it was greed, not principle," she said quietly. "Somehow that makes it worse." "I intend to expose him," Draven said, "publicly, before the entire council. He will answer for what he did to you." Before Alira could respond, one of her guards burst into the throne room, breathless and urgent. Scouts had spotted a large armed force approaching from the eastern pass, moving with clear intent toward the hidden kingdom. Alira's expression shifted instantly from calm queen to focused commander. She began issuing orders with practiced efficiency, positioning her warriors along the natural choke points in the mountain paths. Draven realized almost immediately who was likely responsible. If Corwin had learned that Draven discovered the truth, he would have every reason to silence Alira before she could testify before the council. Without hesitation, Draven offered his own guards to help defend the kingdom, and to his relief, Alira accepted. The battle that followed was fierce but brief, thanks to the Mountain Kingdom's excellent defenses and Alira's skilled warriors. Fighting side by side with her for the first time in years, Draven felt something in him settle into place, as if his wolf recognized hers on some instinctual level that time and distance had never truly severed. Alira fought with fierce precision, protecting her people with a fearless determination that left Draven in quiet awe. When the attacking force was finally driven back, they captured several soldiers who confirmed under questioning that they had been sent directly by Corwin, with orders to eliminate Alira before she could reveal the truth of her exile. This confession, combined with the evidence Draven had already gathered, was more than enough to guarantee justice. Draven returned briefly to his own kingdom to formally expose Corwin before the full council. Faced with undeniable evidence and eyewitness testimony, Corwin was stripped of his title and removed from the pack entirely, sent into exile without protection or resources, a fitting consequence for the suffering he had caused. The council, shamed by their failure to investigate Alira's exile years earlier, issued a formal apology, though Draven knew words alone could never undo 5 years of lost time. With the truth finally exposed and justice served, Draven returned to the Mountain Kingdom, uncertain of what he would find. He half expected Alira to remain distant, content with the independent life she had built. Instead, he found her waiting for him at the gates, her expression softer than he had seen it since his arrival. "You kept your promise," she said simply. "I told you I would," Draven replied. "I know I can't undo what happened to you. I know you don't need me to rescue you, and I would never ask you to give up everything you built here, but I am asking you to consider something different. Not a queen returning to a throne that failed her, but 2 kingdoms standing together, as equals, if you're willing." Alira studied him for a long moment, the mountain wind stirring her dark hair. Finally, a small, genuine smile touched her lips, the first he had seen from her since his arrival. 2 kingdoms, she repeated softly. "I think I could agree to that." In the months that followed, the 2 kingdoms formed a careful alliance, built not on old promises, but on newly earned trust. Alira continued to rule her Mountain Kingdom independently, while slowly, patiently, she and Draven rebuilt the bond that betrayal had once tried to destroy. It was not the same as before. It was something stronger, forged not by fate alone, but by choice, resilience, and the quiet courage of a woman who had refused to be broken by those who abandoned her. And on the night the 2 kingdoms were finally, formally united under a shared crown, Alira stood beside Draven, not as a lost mate finally found, but as a queen who had chosen, on her own terms, to stand at his side.